Hello, welcome to the second part. In this part we're going to create a fuel tank. So in the last video we already made the screen that I have here, and now I will be starting with the tank. So I'm going to start out with a tube, and we're going to make it a polygon. We're going to close the caps, and I'm going to increase the amount of columns we have. So then I'm also going to scale my tube a little bit thinner, and I will be using a quick group. And with this quick group, I'm gonna make sure I always have the top selected. And in an extrude, I can then use this to extrude on the top. So if I fill in the group in here, selection, I have now this extrusion. A nice trick here is that if we copy the extrude node and we just plug it in here, we can see that automatically we are keep extruding on that primitive. And this makes it super easy then to start procedurally modeling this by just using this extrude. So as you could see here, I have done 3 extrudes, and if I go back to my tube and would change the columns, everything stays the same. We can see that our extrusions are keeping the same ratio while lowering the poly count. So that's useful to have. We can always in here tweak these values, and we can keep stacking up the nodes and model now what you are looking for. So I'm gonna model something that looks like a tank, a fuel tank. So you could, for example, model something that looks like this. So we have a bunch of extrude nodes here, as you could see here. And I'm also going to color some of the useful extrude nodes now, so I later know which one are the important ones or the useful ones. So if I want to, for example, lower or higher this part, so I know it's this one. And in my case, because I always repeated sort of the same process where I have a part that is straight up and then a part that goes inwards. So if you look at the nodes, in here my inset is 0, then my inset has a value, here it's back 0, has a value, back 0, and so on. So everywhere it's 0, I'm gonna color it green. So I have colored these, and now I can tweak these. We can later expose these values if you want to. Then I'm gonna make this shape a bit more interesting, and so with the transform node, and I'm gonna make sure, so I'm gonna use a transform and make sure we have the center filled in here. And I'm gonna scale this up a little bit to begin with, and then I will boolean shapes in this. So here is an example. I'm gonna use a box, subtract. So the idea is that if we merge these back together, so we have this effect going on. You can also in the boolean enable here surface, and you will notice that it's not going to close this part anymore. So it's just going to create a gap. And now I can tweak my shapes. So I will be beveling in my box, and here I can then give it a bevel, and then we can also rotate this, for example, and scale this on something you would like to have. So this could be the first shape, and then I'm going to copy this and do this multiple times so we can merge this result. And I will do that one more time then. Maybe there's also a box over here somewhere. And we can tweak this on how the shape is going. You can also increase the beveling here. And now I can do the other shape as well. And maybe this one is around this place. We can always use an edit node if you want to. So what we could do is then tweak the shape a bit more manually. So I can, for example, make something that looks like this. So this is then the outer layer that comes on top of the tank. And here we can also add an extrude, and we can use this extrude to get these edges. And here we change this value, so in here it's going to create these big primitives. So if you would not like that, we can always afterwards add an extrude, and then we can have on specific areas these placements. And I'm gonna add that in here. Maybe also tweak the scaling, so you have something that looks like this. What could also be nice if that we maybe have like a glowing part in here, and I will also be using a boolean for that. And starting with the box, and I would like to have the glowing part somewhere here. I'm gonna reverse the boolean to subtraction. We can also create a more interesting shape than just a box. So in here I'm gonna add extra divisions to my box, and I will go to my box and I'm going to edit it. And now I can drag this shape a bit and have some variation going on. I could then also extrude the box. I can also scale the box. So we have, for example, this shape going on. So based on what you want, you can then add this here. And in here I will actually take the intersection one, so we extract that piece. And I will be doing the same as I did with the outer shell. I will scale it, but in here I will scale it a little bit down. So let's go to 0.98. So it's like a little bit smaller. And what if we merge this result? Then we have this effect going on. We can also already color this, so we know that this should be then the glowing part. We can also already store this in the group. So later on I can ask this information, and I will be calling it light. So now you have the base of the tank. And with this base setup, I want to make some details, some models. I want to make some props to detail the tank. And I'm gonna keep it fairly simple. So here on the side, I'm gonna make a model that could be used. And I will be having a tube. Set it again to polygons, close the caps. And I will be using a bevel. And in this bevel, I only want to bevel actually the top part. So we can here go to the exclusions and ignore flatten edges and increase this distance. So basically it's going to look at the normal angle on where bevel should be. So here I only want a bevel around these top parts. Then I would like to have a box, and this box is gonna sit here like this, and I'm gonna make it a bit longer, and then I will be duplicating this box, and the idea is that this is going to spin around like this. And a small trick here is that if we reference this here, we have then access to the amount of numbers, and I'm gonna divide by 180 degrees. So every time I increase the numbers, it's gonna automatically place down the correct amount that I would like to have a full circle of detail. So you can also go back here and scale this box if you feel like it should be thinner. Then merging this together, so we have this result. And I would also like to have this part at the top, and I can do this with a transform. And I can simply place it here. I can also scale this a bit here, so we have some variation in scale there. And I'm gonna axis align it, so I know it's perfectly placed in the center. And I will be using a null node, so I can reference this later on to multiple places. So out detail 1. And now I will make a simple variation on this, and in here I'm gonna copy paste the network, and let's say that these are, for example, smaller. So then we have a second detail, a smaller version, and you can create more details if you want to, or you can even load in your own greeble or details. Then I also will be needing some pipes, and I will be making a base pipe. And for that, I'm going to start out with a curve, and I'm going to enable snapping, and I'm going to draw a simple curve like this. Now on this curve, I want to bevel the points because I want to have a smooth corners on the curve. And it will be, when we increase the distance, nothing is really happening, and that's because we need to set it here to points and also increase the divisions, so we have a smooth transition over there. Then I want to give it some geometry, and then you can use the sweep node for this. So in the new sweep node, we can then use the round tube, and then we have a round tube. As you can see, we can also increase columns and radius. If you would like to also have UVs, you can enable here the UVs, and then we have UVs on my tube. Then I would like to have these rings placed here automatically, and I will be copying the bevel. And instead of having here 4 divisions, I'm going to put it down to 1. And I'm going to convert the line to primitives. So in here in this bevel, everything is one primitive. You can see the 0 here. So this is one primitive. And with the convert line, we can see that we have multiple primitives. So each line is a primitive. Then we could use the group range to make our selections, and I will be deleting the parts that we beveled. So in the group range, I can here go to the off, and we can set this to 2. And now we have 0, 2, and 4 selected, but I only want to have 2 and 4 selected and not 0. So I'm going to change the starting point. So right now it starts from primitive 0, but what if it starts from primitive 2? Then it's going to automatically select 2 and 4. Then we can blast this. So in here I didn't change the name, so it's called group 1 by default. Then I will be place a polyframe node, and this is then to correct the normals. So if I fill in here normals, we can now see that our normals are following this line. If we didn't blast away these chamfered edges, you can see that some of these normals are facing the other direction based on that other edge. So if we delete it, we see that the normals are perfectly following the edge. So now we can use a copy to points, and we can use a tube, and we can copy then the tube on the points. So we're going to set the tube to primitive, close the caps, and now we should also find the right orientation. And we might need to scale this down. Then we can also merge this back in here and fine-tune this part so we have a basic pipe. So you can also use this as a pipe tool. So as you can see, if you move the curve, we can move where the pipe is going. You can also add some more details here. Let's, for example, maybe you want to have some bolts, and I can use the tube for that, and creating here 6 columns, and I'm gonna place this right here, maybe a bit smaller, and then I will be using the duplicate node here, and then copy this in a circle. And just like at the before, I'm gonna copy this number here and reference it here, and then I'm gonna divide by 360 degrees. So if I now add more, I can see it's automatically being nicely placed in a circle. And now I have these bolts, and we can easily then tweak how much I would like to have. Also here I'm gonna reference this, so with a null node, and I'm gonna call it out pipe 1. So back to our fuel tank model, we can then place these models, we can then start to place these models on the tank. So with an object merge node, I can then ask that model back. So if I here simply would type in out, I can see my details and my pipes. And for the moment, the way I'm going to place them is by just using a transform, and I'm going to place them where I would like to have them. Also, the scaling might be off. Let's say there is one here in front. Then I'm going to use another transform here. Maybe we have some few details on top, like this one right here. Maybe there's more of them, so I can just copy the node and place and move this other one here. Then I can further use the transform nodes, and I'm going to create the pipe, for example, here on top. Like this, and then I can want another pipe. This other pipe could be nice to have somewhere here on the side. Then we have placed these details around the model. So this is not the most super procedural way to do it. So you're gonna have to decide if it has a benefit if you make this procedural. Like, you don't always have to build in everything procedural if you're not gonna use it. So in my case, I'm not gonna create a procedural system to place this. It is possible, but I'm gonna leave it for that. And here at the bottom, I'm also gonna create a null node, and I'm going to call this out tank. So I know this is the tank part. And that was this for this part. So we have our basic model of a tank, and in the next part we will start combining the screens and a tank to create a real terminal or station.